House Treasure Hunt. A Wicky and O'Shaughnessy story by Rod Reed. Once the newspaper came out with the picture of Wicky Burke and his dog, O'Shaughnessy, on page 1, the whole town was abuzz. Everywhere you went, you heard people talking about the haunted house murder mystery. It had all started on a warm spring night when Wicky, awake in his bed, heard the faint whistle of the whippoorwill outside his window. Wicky sat up, alert, listening. The whistle came again, unmistakably. Whip-poor-will. Whip-poor-will. Silently, Wicky threw back the covers and slipped out of bed. He was fully clothed except for shoes, and it only took a moment to put them on in the darkness. Then he quietly raised the window and let a knotted rope down against the side of the house. The rope made a sliding, slapping noise as it descended, and Wicky held his breath, wondering if anyone had heard. No one had, and a moment later, he was climbing down the rope. As soon as his feet touched the springy grass, Wicky started walking stealthily toward the back fence. The bright moon gave the green ground a glow and made the dark shadows under the trees even darker. When Wicky reached what he considered a safe distance from the house, he gave a low whistle. It sounded like whip-poor-will too. There was an answering whistle from beyond the fence. O'Shaughnessy, Wicky's dog, whimpered as the boy approached the doghouse. There was a thump-thump-thump as the dog's big tail beat against the sides and floor. "Come on out, O'Shaughnessy," whispered Wicky. "But be quiet." Wicky unlatched the back gate, opened it as quietly as its squeaky hinges would permit, and slipped out, with the dog at his heels. There they met the other whippoorwill, Stonehead Melton. "We have to hurry," whispered Stonehead. "What time is it?" asked Wicky. 11:30, said Stonehead. "We have to be in the haunted house exactly at midnight." "Do you have the diggers?" asked Wicky. "Sure," said Stonehead. "You carry the shovel." An expedition into a haunted house at midnight is not an ordinary expedition for two small boys. This one was the result of a story they had been told by Stonehead's Uncle John. Uncle John was a man who knew everything about everything, and when the mood was on him, he could hold the boys fascinated for hours with his yarns about big game hunting in Africa, fighting Germans in France, killing wild Indians barehanded on the western plains, and all manner of other exciting things, each one his own true experience, of course. And lately, he had told them in strictest confidence the inside true story of the old haunted house on Graveyard Road. Of course, in those days, Pebble Creek was much wider and deeper because there weren't so many people in the world, and they didn't drink so much water. Wicky wasn't sure about this, but he believed all the rest. The boat had run aground, and Captain Kidd, fearful that somebody would steal his gold from the boat, had taken it all and buried it in the cellar of the haunted house. Then a sudden big flood came up in the creek, swept the boat back out to sea, and Captain Kidd never could return to retrieve his loot. Uncle John explained that he knew all this because he had seen the secret log of Captain Kidd's expeditions, and he also knew how to tell exactly where the treasure was hidden. When the moon was full, it would throw a patch of light through the cellar window right onto the spot promptly at midnight. Uncle John said that everybody who knew about it, except him, was afraid to go into the haunted house. And, of course, he didn't need to, because he was already rich, with his diamond mines in Africa and his rubber plantations in Brazil. Stonehead and Wicky were not rich, and that's why they had overcome their natural repugnance for haunted houses. Their blood tingled with excitement. They approached Graveyard Road, walking briskly in the flower-scented night. Presently, they could see the big, grey, lonesome old house outlined clearly in the distance in the moonlight. "You scared?" asked Wicky, nervously. "Kumi?" "Nah," snorted Stonehead, with an overshow of confidence. "Do you think your Uncle John might have been kidding us about the treasure?" Wicky questioned, his footsteps automatically slowing as they drew nearer to their goal. "Uncle John, did you ever know him to kid us?" reproached Stonehead. No, reflected Wicky, but he might. "You scared?" asked Stonehead. "Course not," asserted his companion. "I was just thinking it would be a shame to walk all the way out here and not find any treasure." They covered the last 100 yards to the house in cautious silence, only the tread of their feet and the sniffing snorts of O'Shaughnessy as he searched out the most interesting smells, breaking the stillness of the night. As they climbed over the rotted steps onto the rickety, shadowy porch, each would have welcomed a chance to turn and flee if only the other had suggested it. Each was more afraid of being branded a coward than he was of the unknown dangers within. Stonehead pushed the front door and it creaked open. Just like Inner Sanctum on the radio, cracked Wicky. Both laughed, but the laughs were hollow. Wicky's flashlight, held in a trembling hand, caused weird shadows to dance around the front room. Ancient, musty smells drifted into the boys' nostrils. Maybe we could dig better in the daytime," said Wicky. Maybe, agreed Stonehead. Then a distant clock began to bong. "Midnight," exclaimed Stonehead. Maybe we ought at least go downstairs and see where the moonlight hits, so we can mark it and know where to dig." They found the cellar steps and hurried down. Now it was a matter of getting the thing over with, quickly. "Look!" cried Stonehead, pointing. Sure enough, the moonlight, streaming through a hole in the dirty window, was marking a small spot on the floor. In the excitement of the treasure hunt, the boys forgot fear. They began to dig furiously in the earthen cellar floor. O'Shaughnessy, catching the enthusiasm, began to run around, barking. "I hit something hard," cried Wicky as his shovel clanked. "It must be the treasure chest." The boys dug faster. Stonehead swept earth away with his bare hands. In one moment, they had uncovered this something hard. In another, they were racing along Graveyard Road as fast as they could go. They had dug up a skeleton. At breakfast, Wicky's mother remarked that her son looked tired. Hadn't he slept well? Wicky, with a mouthful of cereal, mumbled something inaudible, and father remarked that maybe the boy needed a spring tonic. Mother, stepping to the stove, gazed through the window into the backyard. Then she let out a shriek. Father jumped up from the table as Mother nearly fainted. Weakly, she cried, "That dog, O'Shaughnessy, he's killed somebody. He's got a bone out there. It's a human arm." Father looked out. Sure enough, there was O'Shaughnessy, happily worrying what appeared to be an arm bone, with the skeleton of a hand and fingers dangling crazily from one end. It was then, to save his pet from a murder charge, that Wicky confessed all. How he and Stonehead had uncovered the skeleton, and that O'Shaughnessy no doubt had dragged part of it home. The police were called, and at the scene of the crime, one of the officers declared this skeleton had undoubtedly been the victim of foul play. Reporters reported and photographers photographed. The mayor announced a $500 reward for the apprehension of the murderer. It was not until several hours later, when the coroner returned to town, that it was revealed the skeleton had never been alive at all. It was just a composition model, stolen sometime before from the medical school laboratories. The thief of the crime had been prankish college boys who borrowed the skeleton and then were afraid to return it, so they buried it in the old house. But Uncle John had another theory. He told Wicky and Stonehead that whoever buried this skeleton undoubtedly found Captain Kidd's treasure. And then, being rich and able to buy much larger and better skeletons, he decided to leave the old second-hand one buried right there. The end.